Hello, welcome to my studio. My name is Mallorey Caron and I'm primarily a printmaker and textile artist. I grew up with creative parents, so I was always making pastel paintings or watercolor, quilting, or outside in the garden. So I decided to go to Boston and pursue a fine arts degree and did, all the media under the fine arts umbrella. And my senior thesis was patchwork quilts that I made that I started carving botanical linoleum blocks. So that was like the beginning of the work that I'm making now. When I moved back here after a couple of years, I hadn't really been making art for a while, so I decided to take a class, something I knew and something I didn't. So in school I was bookmaking. So the class I decided to take was natural dyeing for book artists. And that really put me on the path to where I am now. So my work is two facets. So I'm carving linoleum blocks, all botanical imagery, and I'm printing on cotton towels. And then my other body of work is natural dyes. So I'm actually using plants to make the prints. So I'd like to do a little demonstration of what's called an eco-printing technique, where you use steam and the steam pulls out each plant's individual unique shape and color. So let's check it out. So the best part about natural dyeing is there's a lot of experimentation that goes into it because all of your pigments are living, they're plants, they're alive. So the colors that you get are affected by the growing season, how much rain there was, the minerals in the soil, the pH in the water, and then color mixing is a little bit different than painting as well. So there's a lot of room for just playing around. So there's two main natural dye techniques. There's an immersion bath. Just think like a solid color. You're putting your plants in a pot and you simmer it with water and the heat will draw out the color and then you put your fabric in. The other technique is eco-printing, which I'm going to show today. It's a direct contact method. So you're putting the plants on the fiber directly and you steam it instead of immersing it into water. So the first thing you need to do is spritz your fabric so it's evenly wet. And this is silk. So it's natural dyes work with natural fibers. And you do have to prep your fibers first before you dye so that the colors are forming a permanent chemical bond. And I'm just kind of making sure all the wrinkles are out, and then I'm going to unfold it. So the right side of the fabric is now going to be exposed. So I'm going to lay all of my different flowers on the fabric. And each flower has what's called a sun side and a moon side. So the sun side is what's facing the sun, and the moon side is the underside of the flower. So they will actually give you different colors or different kind of intensities of color. So I'm just kind of laying it down however I feel. It's not, I don't know, I just, do how I feel. I'm not very planned out in this stage. So I've got cosmos, hollyhock, and coreopsis. So I've got a garden outside that I grow plants. I also forage. And then my parents actually have an acre of property and they grow for me as well, which is really nice. So I like to dry plants because our growing season is super short. So, and I'm just kind of sprinkling around. And then once you've got your design that you like, you're going to fold it back in half. And then I use, it's called a barrier cloth, which sounds really formal, but it's really just anything that you put on your fabric that prevents the flowers from printing all the way down. So this flower here is just going to print there. Without the barrier cloth, it would print all the way down the fabric. So I just use saran wrap and I reuse it. Obviously, you can see that it's And you want really nice contact between the flowers and the fabric. So I'm going to use an aluminum rod here, and I'm just going to roll it. Oops. So I do a lot of foraging as well. The class that I took was in October, so I kind of had to figure out what was available, and at that time it was a lot of sumac, and I was using food waste, basically, like avocado pits and shells and onion skins. But once I started dyeing, I couldn't stop because I just loved it so much. So you've got your roll. Now I'm going to put rubber bands on it so it stays taut. And then this bundle will steam for about 45 minutes. And I'm going to unveil another bundle that I've already steamed so you can see the reveal process. So this bundle is going to go into the steamer, which is here. And I'm going to take out my bundle that already steamed. And then I'm going to show you a modification bath. So that's another way that you can expand your palette. It's with iron. You could do copper, and you just kind of create like a bath, a water bath, and then you add in your iron or your copper or whatever. So on this one I used eucalyptus and hollyhock, so I used those pink flowers. On this version it was blue. There we go. The saran wrap really there we are. So you can see that the color is really vibrant. So this one I folded in a bit of a different way. And then we'll reveal. So here's my eucalyptus. This eucalyptus I sourced, but I do have a honey eucalyptus in my living room. And then this is our hollyhock, which I will just peel off. And then that will reveal the print of the flower. Okay, so now I'm going to pop it in the iron modification bath, and that's going to pull out grays, greens, so it'll be really pretty. Because I don't always love like the yellowy look of the eucalyptus. It may take a minute because it probably could have been a little bit hotter. But let's see. So you can kind of see it starting to deepen, especially like the eucalyptus. So the longer it's in there, the grayer it will become. So, and it'll sort of turn into the scarf I have on the wall, which I will show you all very soon. Yeah. So natural dyeing is a lot about experimentation. So when I'm trying to kind of expand my color palette and figure out new colors, I do a lot of just tiny dye swatches. So these are some dye extracts, but I also have onion skins, rose petals, avocado pits. So I'll do a base color, like this is roses, and then I will put it into another one of my little swatches and just kind of see what kind of color I'll get. So it happens pretty quickly, the transformation of color. Actually, that could probably, see, it's a little bit different. So then I'll just lay my swatches out on paper and decide if I want to do any more over dyeing. And then when things are finalized, I will put them into my sketchbook and I'll write what I dyed it with, how long each swatch was in the bath, what kind of over dyes that I've done, which I show in that here if you'd like to see. And then I also do experimentations with different leaves. So this is kind of a more finalized version, and this is using cottons. I make work under the name Planted Pigments. So these are examples of eco-printed raw silk tops I've made. So these are all either foraged or grown flowers or leaves. So we've got cherry leaves. As you kind of move along, there's sumac and more coreopsis, which are some of my favorite flowers. Then there's oak leaves and hollyhock and eucalyptus. So most of these have been modified in the iron bath, which is why you're seeing the grays and the olives. Plants straight from the ground when you're dyeing, yellow is the most found color, yellow and orange. So it's nice to kind of play with the palette that you can get from the plants. And then I also soak leaves in different dye baths to pull out different colors. People have been dyeing for hundreds of years all over the world. So I use some of the dye stuffs that they have used, like madder root, which will actually grow around here. And then cochineal, which is an insect that's from the West Coast, Mexico, South America. So in addition to the tops that I'm making, I also dye silk scarves. So silk really is lustrous and takes the color really nicely. So I do different sizes, neckerchiefs, 8x54s, and this one is actually 22x90. So it's a nice big piece of fabric. So the other facet of my work is the linoleum blocks that I'm carving. So they're generally botanical themed, but I do dragonflies, bees, different insects. So each block starts as a drawing that I've made that I carve into linoleum, and then I'm hand printing each towel. So the ginkgo's leaves are really popular, and then I've got the 2-color print, which is the forget-me-not and licorice. So each towel is 1 or 2 blocks that I'm inking and printing repeatedly, and they're a cotton flower sack towel. So they're pretty absorbent, and it's a nice soft material. I'm thinking of a new design that I want to make into a block. I'll do some sketches on tracing paper, which I'll then transfer onto linoleum. It's just sheets of linoleum. It's not mounted. It's just very floppy. So once I've got my drawing transferred, I use wood carving tools, and each block I'm hand carving. Sometimes the ink will kind of get into the, the finer details, but they're all hand carved, and then I ink with brayers. So it's just a rubber brayer. But you have different kinds of tools that you can get finer details and little tiny lines and things like that. So it's an enjoyable part of the process because it's really meditative and just repetitive. And then when I'm printing, it's just, you kind of get into the zone and you just... So these are some examples of the blocks that I've carved. So this is the forget-me-not, and this is the licorice, which I use to print this towel here. And then I've got the ginkgo. So I just had to recarve this one because my other ginkgo block was like totally falling apart. I print it all the time. And then the dragonfly, it's just one dragonfly that I'm inking 12 different times on the towel in different colors. So for the towels, I'm actually using speedball inks that I'm hand mixing based on plant dyes that I've gotten. My eventual goal is to make natural dye block printing ink, but I haven't really gotten the recipe. It's always a little off. So that's my eventual goal, but I'm using speedball inks and I hand mix each color. Well, thank you all so much for coming. My name is Mallorey Caron, and you can find me online, MalloreyCaron.com, MalloreyCaron.com. And then on Instagram, I am planted_pigments. Thank you for coming to my studio.